We're going to continue our study in Revelation 12, and then we're going to hope to get into Revelation 13. If you remember, we were talking in Revelation 12 about, and this is we're coming to the midpoint of the tribulation period. This is the first 3.5 years are coming to an end, and now the second 3.5 are going to start. That's 1,260 days. But this is a chart of what we've been talking about. This is the woman, sun-clothed woman in heaven, and you know, Joseph had this vision in Genesis chapter, I believe 37, and he said that there would be 12 sheaves bow down to him, or 11 sheaves, I guess, or 12, I guess 12, bow down to him, and they got angry at him. Like, who are you to be telling us that? And come to find out, you know, when he got down to Egypt, he was the second in command down there, and all of Abraham, Jacob and all the sons had to bow down to him, and that was a vision. But he saw this woman with a garland about her, and then the man-child, and then at the bottom is the dragon. See the dragon there? A picture of what the dragon would be, with those 7 heads and 10 horns on each, on them, and it's a wonder. It's a wonder. Now, people, you know, try to say who the woman is, and they say it was Mary, and it was other. There was a church and this and that, but it is Israel. That is Israel. She gave birth to Jesus. And then these stars over here, you can see them off to the left here. The tail of the dragon carried 1/3 of the angelic host in the first fall in Ezekiel chapter 28 and Isaiah 14. And okay, now the next one that we're going to be talking about too is war in heaven. Is this picture right here. You can see Michael the archangel going out and warring against Satan and his host. And so these are just pictures to have. These were done by Clarence Larkin. They're in the book called Dispensational Truce. It's a great book to have if you can find it. It was done in 1917, I believe, or 1920, somewhere in there. He was an architect that got Spirit-filled coming out of the Azusa Street revival. And so he was a masterful drawer. I mean, I'm going to tell you, a picture speaks 1,000 words. You get a picture of this, you kind of visualize what's going on in heaven. Now, that's the war that's going on in heaven right now, in the first and second heavens that are going on. Now, let's look here at the last part of 12, and then we'll just jump into 13. And we're going to start at verse 13 again. Now, when the dragon saw that he had been cast out of the earth, he persecuted the woman. Who was the woman? Israel. That is the dragon is Satan himself persecuting the woman. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, that Satan is still persecuting the woman right now in Israel. He uses a proxy group called Hamas, and he uses Hezbollah, and the Houthis, and he uses all these different proxy groups that are inspired by Satan himself to come against and try to destroy Israel. And you know what the problem of all this is? It's filtering over into the European countries. It's filtering into America. You've got these people out in the streets doing these anti-America marches that are supporting Hamas. Do these people even have an idea of who they're supporting and what they stand for? And then you got a guy that's running for mayor in New York City that's really just a communist socialist that is supporting Islam. Yeah. And I had a deal come out on my phone this morning. One of the survivors from the 9/11 said, you do not need a mayor that's supporting Islam who attacked New York City and took the towers down. Go back and remember that. Yeah. 24 years ago. And so, but this stuff spreads, and Satan uses these spirits of darkness and these, Paul lists them all. There's 4, major classes of these spirits, and they are in and then Satan himself. Now, when it comes to Israel, Satan steps up himself and goes against her. Verse 14, but the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle. Now, we talked about that Jesus said in Matthew 24, verse 15, 16, 17, that when the Jews in Jerusalem hear that the Antichrist has gone into the temple, stopped all the sacrifices in the tribulation temple that has been rebuilt on the Temple Mount for the tribulation period, and stopped all that, threw all of the Jews and priesthood out, declaring himself to be God. Now that's in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 1, 2, and 3. You see, there's 2 or 3 witnesses to this. There's Jesus' witness, there's Paul's witness, there's John's witness of what is happening, going to happen during the tribulation period. He said, you Jews in Jerusalem, when you hear of this fact that this person has moved into the temple and taken over and declared himself to be God, don't even go to your home. Do not do nothing but get out of the city as fast as you can. And go to the mountains. And where are we thinking that's going? That's going down to Petra. And that's 120 miles away. So what happens, they can't, there may be traffic jams, there may be bus jams, they may be no telling what. He may force all the Antichrist may stop all the traffic, trying to walk down there 120 miles. Well, God sends a great angel, an eagle, down and scoops all these Jews up that are on their way and takes them down and parks them in Petra. And then I tell you, I think he's going to put an invisible dome over Petra. Because the Antichrist is going to spend the next 3.5 years searching for these Jews and try to destroy every one of them. He can't find them.
Thank you, Jesus.
See? And we've shown you pictures of Petra and a video of Petra, and there's only one way in and one way out. It's not very wide. It's maybe as wide as this right here. So it'd be easy to block it off and not let anybody in. So, but anyway, that's what's going to happen. And then it says this. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, and that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. Now, anytime we're talking about water like that and spewing water out of it, that's talking about words. What he's doing, he's telling everybody in the world, spewing this out of his mouth, how these Jews need to be destroyed, just like Hitler did, and just like Stalin. That the Jews are your problem. That's the way Hitler sold this to the German people. The reason that we're in poverty is because of those Jews, those rich Jews living down there and owning all the banks and controlling all the money supply. Now, who were they? The Rothschilds. They were Jews. All these Jews lived in these big fancy homes. They were all educated. Why? Because God blessed them. And they had all the money. And the Germans coming out of World War I were broke. I remember Dietrich Bonhoeffer talked about that when he was a young boy going to college there in Germany, that his father took a whole wheelbarrow full of marks, German marks, down and tried to buy one loaf of bread. And when he got down there wasn't any bread to buy. He said it was terrible because of the destruction after World War I. With the armistice between the United States, French, and England, and they put all these controls and everything on them, and the German mark just fell to the bottom. It was worth nothing. And if you had any gold, that was about the only way, or silver, or some, things like that. You could barter, you could trade, and that. So, even if you had some, it was really hard to. I want to ask you something right now. You see all these ads of buy gold, buy gold, buy gold. Yeah. Okay, you go buy gold. And we have a flat, where the dollar goes flat. And you got this gold. Tell me how you're going to go spend that gold. You got bars of gold. How are you going to go down to the grocery store and get a loaf of bread? I used to have a safe full of gold and and silver and all that. Now let me tell you, I have kept some. I keep it. I keep some just in case. But if you have and my brother-in-law, one time I went over to his house, and he had a doorstop. I don't know how many hundreds of ounces that was, but that was solid silver. And I said, what in the world? He says, if a robber came in and was going to try to steal my house, he would never think I'd have a block of gold, of a silver, as a doorstop. And let me tell you, I heard yesterday or the other day, silver's up to $50 an ounce. And when I was in it, I bought it for $18. So you can imagine how much money you've made if you had it. But I'm not going to go down to the grocery store, HEB, and try to take my silver dollars and buy groceries with it. I mean, they wouldn't even know how to. They wouldn't even know how to do it. So what I'm saying is, trust God. You got to trust God in these situations. And in this time during the tribulation, God says, get out of Jerusalem as fast as you can and hide out. And the dragon was enraged with the woman. Look at the verse 17. And he went to make war with her, the rest of her offspring. And that is any believers who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus. Now her offspring are the tribulation saints. Those are the ones that begin to believe in Christ during the tribulation. And he makes war against every one of them. And what does he do? He beheads them all if he catches them. Okay, now we're going to jump into the next chapter. Remember, these are parenthetical chapters that were inserted in the trumpet judgments, and we're in the coming to the end of the trumpet and beginning to start the vial judgments or bowl judgments. Now these chapters 10, 11, 12, 13 are 4 chapters that are what we call parenthetical, that are inserted in between the next bowl judgments. We'll pick those up in chapter 14. So let's look at here. This is very important because this is a picture of the Antichrist and the false prophet and what will be happening during the tribulation at the midpoint of the tribulation period. So let's look at Revelation chapter 13 and let's pick it up. Then I stood on the sands of the sea, and that sea that we're talking about is the Mediterranean. And I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on the horns 10 crowns, and on his head a blasphemous name. Now I do have this. I just found this in my. I used to teach at noon. I used to have a Revelation class, and every Wednesday at noon I would have a whole bunch of people come in, and I'd teach the Revelation. So I gave them a whole manual of the book of Revelation. Now I have that. If you want it, it'll cost you $100. I'll print it up for you. I'm just kidding. No, if you're interested, I'll try to get one for you. But this is kind of an outline of the whole thing. It says here, the beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, are the sea of nations. The sea is the nations that he's talking about. Now, the description is, first is and then I'll go back and describe this to you. Now look at number 2. Now the beast, which I saw, was, number 1, like a leopard. Number 2, like a bear. And out of the mouth of a lion. Now there are 3 things there that are descriptive, and I'm going to tell you what each one of those represents. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and his great authority. Now what here? We find out right here, when Satan is cast out of the heavenlies, he incorporates or possesses the body of the Antichrist. There's 2 places in the Bible that are mentioned. When Judas Iscariot when Satan possessed the body of Judas Iscariot, he was called the son of perdition. When the Antichrist is possessed by Satan himself, he is also called the son of perdition. It's only 2 places in the Bible that the son of perdition is mentioned, Judas Iscariot and the Antichrist. They're totally alike. What did Judas Iscariot do? He was anti-Christ. He had Jesus crucified. You know, he turned him in. He pointed him out. He betrayed him with a kiss. And so what happened is this body is what Satan's going to use these last 3.5 years to bring vengeance on the Jewish people and any believers that are in the world. And I saw one of the heads of it. Now, I'll tell you before we go to that, let's go back and let me explain these. Let's look at the leopard, the bear, and the lion. The dragon gave its power and his throne, authority. The bear represents the Medo-Persian Empire under Cyrus and Darius. Darius the Great. Darius I. Then later came Cyrus. Now, do you know where the Medo-Persian Empire is today? It's Iran. Babylon was under Nebuchadnezzar and then later his son. Do you know where Babylon is today and what it represented? Iraq. Isn't it interesting? I find it very, very interesting in studying Bible prophecy. Starting in 1991 and 92, these nations that never even were mentioned on the news as being anything became very prominent on the news all the time. What does it do? You come the full circle back to the battles and the wars that Israel had against these nations. The Iraq, we had Kuwait. Remember, we first had the Kuwait, but who was attacking Kuwait? Saddam Hussein out of Iraq. He wanted to take those oil fields down in Kuwait. So George W. Bush, George H.W., George W.'s father, brought a 36-nation coalition together in 1991 to come against Saddam Hussein going down and stealing the oil out of Kuwait, because the opinion was if Saddam Hussein got in charge of all that oil and all those ports down there, then he could control the oil supply of the world, and it would totally destroy the economy of the world. Yeah. So all those nations come together and went against Saddam Hussein. And you might remember that that was a 100-hour war. Once we got after it, it only lasted 100 hours. Wow. And we put 500,000 troops in Kuwait on the border. And I thought, me being a captain in the Army in the Dental Corps, that I was going to get called back in. They were going to, and my friend was an anesthesiologist here, and another friend of mine, an oral surgeon, got called back in. And they had already put their time in, but they got called back. We're all in the reserves up until you're 60-something years old. And so they got called back in. But that war, I remember that night, I've been out running, and I came in the health spot. It was on the TV. We had already started air operations over into Iraq. It was at night here, but it was in the night over there too. And then we started sending those planes off those carriers and going in. And we had two of our kids out of our youth group in our church. One was in the 82nd Airborne. The other one was in the 101st Airborne. The 101st jumped in. They did a night jump into Kuwait behind the lines of the Republican Guard. And the 82nd, of which the other kid was, jumped in, went over Turkey and came in and jumped in over Iraq in the north behind Mosul to cut Saddam Hussein from taking off and getting out of the country. So they did those. And then we started this war, and after the decimation, those B-52s up there dropping those bunker busters, these Iraqis were jumping out of those planes, surrendering away from high. They wanted to quit, man. It didn't take him long at all. And that war ended real quick. And then going up to the road to Baghdad, there was a road from Kuwait to Baghdad. They had all their tank columns and all the Republican Guard and all that. And my friend, who was a colonel right out here at ASU, he went to Air Force Academy. He flew a tank killer and an A-10. And he said he went over those things and he just, leveled those. He said, you should have seen that road when we got through with it. It was burned out, busted up tanks all the way to Baghdad. And then what they wanted to do, they wanted to go ahead and, Schwarzkopf wanted to take that column and go right on up to, and get Saddam Hussein then, but the United Nations wouldn't let them. Remember? Y'all remember? Well, that was the unfinished war of 1991 and 1991. And then in 2000 after 2001, after the attack on the towers, George W., the son, and Cheney, in their War Department decided that they were going to go in to declare war against Iraq, called it, I think, Iraqi freedom, and against Afghanistan, and because they had terrorist training camps over there. So we got into a two-place war that went on for 20 years. And then we actually won the Iraqi part and the Afghanistan part. But when Barack Obama got in and Biden got in, they gave it all back. So all those lives and all that money and everything was for naught. But what I'm saying is, even to this very day, Medo-Persian, Babylonian, and the leopard represents the Grecian Empire. All the world events that you're seeing today have to do with the Middle East. I remember in World War II, I wasn't alive, but I mean, I've done a lot of studying on World War II because my dad was in the military. He was in the Navy in South Pacific. But it was Japan, it was Germany, and it was Italians. That was our three big. These little old countries were never even mentioned hardly. I mean, nobody ever mentioned Iran and, well, in fact, at that time, Iran wasn't even in existence, I don't believe. It was just, what was it called? It was called Persia, I believe. And something else you may not understand. Persia, Iran, and Iraq have a border between them. Iraqis speak Arabic. Iranians speak Farsi. Two totally different languages. The Farsi is much more refined language than the Arabic. And you know, Scott Dixon, I believe, is the one that used to teach this out here. I know he taught Russian, but he may have taught Arabic or one of them. But that's what they do out here at our base. When these people come in intelligence, they train them. They teach them these languages. And then they have to go to Monterey, California, and go to language school. And they learn all these languages so they can get on these earphones and listen and all this stuff they do. And but anyway, it's very important that we're coming to the full circle of this back now. Okay, the bear represents Medo-Persia. The lion represents the Babylonian Empire, and the leopard represents the Grecian Empire under Alexander the Great. Now, Alexander the Great died at age 33, but he had 4 generals, and when he died, his empires were divided up into one force. And the one that's so important for us is the Seleucid. The Seleucid, one of the generals that took the Seleucid part. Now, what is the Seleucid Empire? Syria, Palestine, all that area right there. The other one was down in Egypt, took over Egypt. The other one took over more of the European part. So these 4 generals began to rule the world under the Grecian Empire until the Romans defeated the Greeks in 49 BC under Julius Caesar. And then the Roman Empire started taking over power of the world. Jesus was born into the Roman Empire. Let's look at the 7 heads of this beast that we're talking about. Let's write them down. I remember the first time I ever heard this was there was a guy, an evangelist from New Zealand named Barry Smith. And me and Jay Dunterman drove over to Big Springs. There was a church over there that was hosting Barry Smith. And I didn't know anything about it, but Jay Dunterman says, hey man, there's this really good prophecy teacher, and I know you'd like prophecy, so why don't we go over there and listen to him? Well, this is the first time I'd ever heard a description of all this. We bought every tape he had, bought every book he had, and he didn't have a book. He only had tapes. So let's start out with the first head. It represents the Egyptian Empire. The second one is the Assyrian Empire. Now how far back does this Egyptian Empire go? It goes way back to the time of Moses. And, and when Moses was in there. And then the next one was the Assyrian Empire. Now that one is, their headquarters was out of Nineveh. Remember that? Nineveh, the word Nineveh? Do you know what Nineveh is today? It's Mosul, Iraq. The hometown of Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein is no longer alive. By the way, I want to tell you something. Real proud of this young kid. He grew up in our youth group. He always wanted to go into, when he graduated from high school in 2001, he was in Maria's class, Maria Punchi's class in high school. He joined up with the Army and he wanted to go to paratrooper school. So they did. They sent him out to North Carolina. He went to airborne training, got in 82nd Airborne. And then later, 9/11 happened and things really changed for him. And he went to, and also, let's see, was that before? No, he was before. When did they get Saddam Hussein? Was it? Oh, it was after the Gulf, the Kuwait War. Yeah, it was in 2001, I believe. They sent patrols all over Iraq trying to find Saddam Hussein. And one day he was on a patrol with these special forces and 82nd Airborne, and they went up to this little town outside of Iraq, Mosul, and they were asking around if they'd seen anybody suspicious or doing anything suspicious. They said, well, there's a guy over there in a hole with a cardboard box over his head. We don't know what he's doing, but he's over there in that hole. And they went over there and they flipped that off, and it was a guy who had all beard and filthy and everything. They drug him out of the deal and they just took him back. They didn't know who he was. That was Saddam Hussein. They captured him. They did his DNA. And they captured him. So that's another thing. Chris Flores is his name. Chris Flores. Hey, Chris, if you're watching, thank you for doing that. And then the next one was the Babylonian. The next head is the Babylonian, because the Assyrians overthrew the Babylonians. The Babylonians overthrew the Syrians under Nebuchadnezzar, and then, or maybe his father. Then remember the Medo-Persians overthrew the Babylonians. All of these are in that great dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, the giant colossus in Daniel chapter 2, starting at verse 41, down to 64. You can see the colossus. Daniel comes in and interprets the dream and tells him what he saw. And he saw this head, silver, brass, and iron. Up here is Babylonia, because it was the greatest empire at that time. Then it came the Medo-Persian. Then it became the Grecian. Then it became the Roman. But the 10 toes are the ones we're most concerned with today. It's the iron mixed with clay, and that represents a revived Roman Empire. Okay, and then next is the Grecian. And the next one is a Roman. And then after that, it's the revived Roman. Now, in Daniel chapter 7, verse 8, we're told that there are going to be 10 kings. These 10 kings. These are kings that come out of the revived Roman Empire. We are seeing this today in history. This day, this is happening. Because the revived Roman Empire started in 1957 in Luxembourg. 6 nations of the old Roman Empire came together and formed a coalition together and signed up their documents and everything. And now that is the European Union. Now, there are 27 nations in the European Union right now, but there are mainly 10 nations, the most powerful nations that run that. And once a nation goes into the European Union, it's very difficult to get out of it. Now, England has been trying to get out of the European Union for about 5 years. It's called the Brexit. And they still haven't been able to get out of it. But when a nation gives their constitution and their sovereignty and all that to the European Union, they have no rights anymore. They have no borders. That's why England can't close its borders. They got all of these Muslims just flooding in, taking over their country. And in fact, the mayor the mayor of London is a Muslim. They got them all coming in, and so they can't close their borders because of the one thing the European Union did is have open borders. You don't even have to. I don't even know if you have to have a passport anymore. You can just travel all over the country now under the EEU. It's called an EEU. I remember in 1991 on New Year's Eve, me and this guy named Jackson, a singer, famous singer on TBN, we're doing a meeting up at Colorado City Christian Fellowship. They invited us up to do the meeting for them, and they wanted me to teach on prophecy. And he sang. He did all the singing. Man, what was his name? He was the one that got found. How he got found is somebody gave a tape of his to Jan, the girl that was it TBN? Yeah, TBN. Put it, and she just put it in her car, and she just didn't know who it was. She just put it in and started listening to this guy singing. She went back and told her husband, says, "Man, we got to get this guy on TBN." And they did, and they made him a star. I'm telling you, I'm trying to remember his name, but he was real famous. And so I taught, and now let me tell you what was important that night, because the first day of 1992, the European Union was going to have their own currency, the euro dollar. And it was coming in. And that meant once they got their own currency, then they were legitimate. And so, anyway. All right, I think I better stop there. We're going to get down to the 10 horns. As I said, these represent these 10 kings. And you can go back and read Daniel chapter 7, verse 8 on that. I'm going to stop, and what we're going to do, it says, "In the dragon's power in his throne was given great authority." We're going to pick it up in Revelation 13 next week, all the way down because this is so important, because this is the world we're living in right now. The Antichrist is in charge, the false prophet. Of course, the false prophet and Antichrist haven't been revealed to us because we're not in the tribulation. But this will be the last half of the tribulation. And then it'll be you can't buy or sell, you got to take the mark of the beast. All of those things are in this. And then over in 14, God gives a warning. If you take the mark of the beast, you are condemned to hell forever. And then we get back into the reaping of the earth. And then I believe in 14 is the starting of the next bowl judgment. It's 15. Prelude to the bowl judgment. So we're going to get into the really bad judgments of the book of Revelation, the last 3.5 years. And it's incredible. Now, I want to tell you something, folks. I've been watching YouTube a lot. There are so many things on there that are false. For example, Jared Kushner and President Trump, they're the Antichrist. They're the Antichrist. It's peace treaty.
Oh, yeah.
You people don't know nothing about the book of Revelation. And there is going to be a peace treaty signed, but the church ain't going to be here when that happens. Because if the church is on the earth and we know who signs the peace treaty, we'll know who the Antichrist is. And that's Daniel 9, verse 24 through 27. Verse 27, he will make a covenant for 7 years. But in the middle of the covenant, he will break. And that's when he moves into the temple and declares himself to be God. That's when he breaks the covenant. So it can't be Trump. It can't be anything. The church is never going to know the identity of the Antichrist. So don't waste your time on that junk. What they're trying to do is get subscribers and make money off of it and all that. All Trump and Jared Kushner is trying to bring peace over there to all these people. If he was the Antichrist, I guarantee he wouldn't be bringing peace. The Antichrist is going to be total control, and it will not be peace. It'll be more of a Hitler, Stalin type thing.